Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm a journalist, author, interviewer, broadcaster, and evidently a podcaster. During my 30-year career as an interviewer, I captured on cassette tapes the musings of nearly 1,400 celebrities. Between the years 2015 and 2018, I revisited many of those interviews for a radio series on RTE Radio 1 called The Joe Jackson Tapes Revisited. Imaginative title, eh? However, I have to admit that I probably would not have considered revisiting my 25-year-old interview with Patrick Kielty, if only because, latterly, he wasn't necessarily a high-profile name in Ireland, and more to the point, the nature of our conversation probably would have been too hot, meaning too explicit or non-PC, for the RTE powers that be. I realised this a few weeks ago, before Kielty took over as host of Ireland's longest-running talk show, The Late Late Show, and when I posted as a podcast the first part of our 1998 interview. Well, if that was true of the content of our previous podcast, it applies 1,000-fold to this shorter podcast, which is one in a series of what I call my singles podcasts, because they last roughly 5 minutes, although this runs double that length. Either way, even I myself have censored out a few comments that, funny as they may have seemed, or been, to Patrick and me 25 years ago, they're no longer appropriate. Some listeners may say the same is true of the entire podcast. I'll leave that for you to decide. That is the beauty of podcasts. They can be totally true to history in a way that maybe even radio can no longer be. By the way, the most interesting thing Patrick says during this set of relatively flippant exchanges is that the higher your profile becomes in the media as a stand-up comic, the more you have to tone down your act, as it were. So, I'll also leave up to you the answer to the question of whether or not Patrick Kielty, in his new role as host of The Late Late Show, has been neutralised as a comic, or has even sold out. You can read the full version of my Kielty interview on my website, joejacksoninterviewer.com. Okay, serious question. How have you got any kind of flack back for things like the Diana living with her legs open jokes? Does anybody really go, wow?
That's funny because that gag was done before she died. And
oh yeah, that's the first video.
Yeah,
96. That's right.
And
but the video's still out there, kind of.
It's still out there, and it's funny what time locks and what doesn't.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's like some people who watch the video. I shouldn't have even told you that, because I almost should have just let myself wallow in my own sort of, yeah, well, there you go, it's out there. What can I say?
Okay.
But I have to come clean.
Okay,
and go.
go.
No, I did it when she
was alive.
Yeah.
But
I think that the whole Diana thing was like, Britain just completely lost its head over the Diana thing, and people just went completely cuckoo.
Okay.
And now it's got to the stage where Frank Skinner was doing gags about Diana and Dodie. At the time.
Okay.
Now, he was doing stuff, about body bags and zippity-dodie, zippity-die, right? Okay?
Yeah.
Now, that type of stuff happening at the time, right? Lenny Bruce once said, comedy is tragedy plus time.
Yeah.
And you have to actually work out what the time period of it is. I think the climate's right. If you want to start doing Diana gags again, you probably could, because the hysteria has now almost turned into a backlash of, well, in actual fact, she maybe was this or she maybe was that.
What I was thinking when you're saying is, when you eulogize people, there's also a tendency to desexualize them.
Yes.
And that's what I don't think Diana would say thank you to people who have denied the fact that after a tragic marriage she rediscovered sex.
Well, you see, this is the thing. It's almost sex and constitutions don't really tend to mix. And it's like
in the official view of things.
Absolutely, this is the thing. Yeah. But in a way, she was a very good-looking woman, right? She was a sexy woman.
But she was a sex symbol. So the idea of you saying she was sexually active, whatever way you phrase it, to me is socially true.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
No.
And as you say, Lenny Bruce, it's the time thing that has maybe thrown another question over it.
Exactly, and I think that that the judge of taste and decency almost goes by the clock sometimes.
All right. Yeah, but I mean, Hillary holding Jerry's prick to piss in the sand now. I mean, Patrick. I don't know who that was more an offence to.
It's very true. You see, I actually think that that.
But remember my original question, that the thing of, isn't there ever a time where you really just realise I've stepped over a line, or is there not?
I think there is, but you can never admit it.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Okay. Next question, Joe. All right. So the idea of Jerry Adams' prick and Hillary's hands pissing up the IRA in the snow outside the White House to you is cool.
I think so. What is it, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and her husband Bill? There's something very weird about that setup.
All right.
That I think the notion of doing a knob gag with Hillary, out with Jerry, it's almost maybe more where the power lies. I don't know.
Yeah. No, but that's what I like about it. But you're very cruel to Daniel. I mean, I think that's, I'm not gay, but you're making it hard for me.
Yeah.
That's not nice.
Yeah, he does. It's funny because I've taken a lot of abuse about Daniel. And
I'm really giving you abuse on this one, Patrick.
No, it's true. Right. It's true because people say you can do jokes about Hillary,
okay.
And Jerry Adams. You can do jokes about Diana. You can do jokes about the political situation. You can do jokes about this, and this.
Okay.
But not Daniel.
Who says that though? Who says this?
I get
his mammy.
I know.
He says it.
No, this is the thing, right? This is the thing. There is
his girlfriend.
There is, right? There is a huge amount of people out there. Okay. That worship the ground the man walks on. Right.
All right.
I could never dream of selling, right, the amount of videos, tapes, CDs, or doing the business, or even thinking about earning the money that he makes. So what I find is that whenever you go a wee bit further on, and you're doing TV in the UK and stuff like that, and it gets to the stage where you're not an underdog anymore, you're not someone that's unknown, standing on a stage, telling jokes, and in a way that's easy, because the chance
which is easy.
It's easy being the unknown underdog doing those guys.
To do that stuff.
Do that type of stuff.
All right.
Because it's easier to have a shot at people when you don't know them.
All right. Okay.
And therefore, as you actually go, further on the journey, and suddenly you realise that, my God, I could be talking to the chorus next week, right?
Yeah, but does that mean this is a question I had to the end. Do you then compromise?
No, I don't think you do, right? And this is the whole point. I think that you go for the line and you go for what's funny.
All right.
And you have to.
So you serve your audience.
You serve yourself.
And
you serve yourself and hope that the person that the joke's about has a sense of humour.
Okay.
If they don't, right, I can't help that.
Fair enough. Okay.
But
has Daniel got back to you then?
No, he hasn't actually. But you find that that you end up doing gigs sometimes, and people say to me, "Have you ever been rumbled by the paramilitaries?"
Yeah.
And it's like, no, but
the Daniel paramilitaries. The Daniel paramilitaries.
Daniel fans, it's like the Daniel paramilitaries work quite slower because they before they do a job they have to knit their own balaclavas. You see, that's what it is.
And it's worse, they play his music before they fucking kneecap you.
That's it, so you're left for the last in memory. But it's...
Hi, Joe Jackson here again. I thank you for listening to this edition of the Joe Jackson Interviews podcast. Don't forget, you can read the actual article that I wrote out of that tape and that conversation on my website, joejacksoninterviewer.com.